Hello, welcome to Purposeful Pressure. I am your host, Renee, and we have a special guest with us today. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Anna Jeffers. I was in the Air Force as a nutrition specialist for 8 years. My husband is also active duty military, and we have a 11-year-old daughter and two dogs. We currently live in Misawa, Japan, because he is still active, and that is where they stationed us. I have worked as a maintenance project manager and a project manager for a landfill. I couldn't remember the title of the job. And now I'm working on my master's.
Great, that's awesome. So today we're going to be talking about your experience while you were in the military, and now that you are a veteran, I just would like some insight on what it was like for you. All right,
Yes.
so let's get started. Okay, so what was your initial decision for joining the military, and did it change over the course of your career?
Well, I had a unique high school experience. Instead of going to high school, I skipped that entirely and went to a community college where I completed
Cool.
high school and an associate's degree.
Mm-hmm.
So when it came time to graduate, all I knew was that I was done going to school, but I didn't want to end up in my small town in a dead end job. And with a family of Army and Marines, I was like, well, the military is a good option and they'll pay for school when I'm ready to do that. So having Army and Marines family members, they were all very adamant that I join the Air Force, have a higher quality of life. And so that's what I did.
Okay, good. Did you experience a sense of purpose or value in being in the military?
I did. Coming from a military family, I had a sense of purpose and value to being a member of the military. In the beginning, being in the hospital felt like it had a huge purpose. I loved taking care of people. I always thought something in healthcare was going to be the route I took. But the more patients I interacted with who had given up on their health kind of diminished that. I felt like I cared more about those patients' lives than they did. I got really burnt out.
Yeah, yeah, it'll definitely do that to you. Okay, so next, I want you to fill in the blank on this one. Unmasking a soldier's struggle through what?
Mental health.
Ooh,
Mental health is more important than any other healthcare that could be provided. We're taught to stuff it all down being in the
yeah.
military. And most military members work hard and play hard to blow off steam and develop bad habits that aren't good for their health. We develop the habit of eating too quickly and not truly relaxing. So trying to learn to break those habits and reactions takes work, a lot of work and a lot of help. I will always advocate for mental health. I regularly talk about my journey with antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds, as well as my time with a therapist. And regardless of how positive your experience was or not going through hard things, adjusting to a military lifestyle and then adjusting to a civilian lifestyle, you need assistance, whether that's a faith leader who's giving you mental health guidance or a mental health professional.
Yep, I totally agree with that. All right, next, fill in the blank. I'm healing from.
I am healing from the physical ramifications of my time. I didn't know.
Yes. I know.
I don't know how to explain it, but it was like my body was slowly falling apart while I was in. It started with my knee swelling during basic training, and I learned maybe 5 years ago that I had an infection on my knee during that time that went untreated. And so now my knee is always going to be the size of a grapefruit. I'm always going to have trouble moving and walking. And then during my very first PT test, I hurt my back. And if you've hurt your back, you know, once you hurt your back, that's it. You have a bad back. So I'm working on trying to figure out a good balance with the things that were injured while I was in. I did learn that the only way to fix my knee is a knee replacement, which they won't do until I can't walk. And then I have an autoimmune disease that the only real consistent reason for why it's brought on as stress. And so um, I struggled for years after I got out to find a balance for my body to be able to stay fit without aggravating any of my injuries.
Yeah. hmm Yep, I can totally attest to that, and I understand exactly where you're coming from with that one. Okay. Thinking over your career, what is a valuable lesson you learned?
I think leadership and team building was the most valuable lesson I learned. Um, I don't know how to say this without sounding conceited, but I can be good at any task. I can learn to do anything. Job isn't necessarily important to me, but being able to build a team and be a good leader are what matters most in my career. The older
hmm
I get, the further along I get, the more I realize the value of good leadership, good mentorship, good team building. Because you can be an amazing leader, but if your team isn't cohesive and working together, it really doesn't matter.
hmm Yep, I like that answer. I would assume that you've encountered some impactful leaders and managers. Tell me about one who made a positive impression and one who made a substandard impression.
So, the positive leaders throughout my time in the military is a very long list. Even
Really?
those who weren't great in one aspect were in another. So, they taught me something. It also taught me that we all have blind spots and we need to be open to criticism and feedback from our peers and subordinates. I was convinced my first supervisor hated me. But once I started supervising, I realized how invested we get in our airmen. And
Mhm.
through trying to guide them, I gained a new appreciation for the way that she had tried to help me grow. She didn't hate me. She saw more capabilities and she tried to help me grow. And I often found that I wasn't pushing myself. And so she saw the capabilities I had and where I could go, and she was pushing me. I had amazing superintendents who took the time to show that they cared, but when it came down to it, they didn't have the fortitude to stand up for the team. I
hmm
understand now that sometimes your boss is not someone you can work with. You
hmm
just rather work for them. So I don't
Yeah.
hold it against them for the limitations they felt they had.
hmm
Substandard is another story altogether. One individual comes to mind. It was like walking on eggshells every day that we came to work. If someone got a crappy schedule or work assignment, we joked that it was because they weren't peppy enough when they said good morning to her.
hmm
Um, they had come from a special duty and didn't know how to do our job anymore. They didn't know what we did or why we did it. They didn't know what we had tried in the past and what worked and what didn't work, and they didn't want to hear it. If they had an idea, we were going to do it, even if we had done it before and knew it didn't work.
hmm
Um, for example, when hurricane season came around, I raised concerns about training employees because we had all newer airmen who had never been stationed somewhere with hurricanes. And if you lose a computer system in the hospital and your team hasn't been taught how to use the paper charting,
hmm
it's a nightmare.
Yes.
Um, Thankfully, that season we did not have a storm, but we did have a fantastic power outage that highlighted the lack of training and knowledge. And all of the supervisors were berated for not having known that the new airmen didn't know how to do that and not taking the initiative to train them.
hmm
She was never available. She was constantly in meetings. I saw her at the grocery store one day during a shift, and she had 2 grocery carts full. And she was like, I work a lot on my off time. So if the boss knows I'm here. And it's just kind of like, if you feel like you have to explain yourself
Yeah.
when you're not doing something, you're obviously not doing something right. But she was constantly changing how she wanted communication given to her or where she wanted paperwork left. And she would implement a new process and then forget that she did it and yell at us for not doing what we used to do. It was wild.
hmm
I believe almost 17 enlisted went and filed EO complaints against
Oh,
her
wow.
around the
hmm
time that I separated.
Oh, okay.
EO here in Japan contacted my husband's leadership so that I could go talk to them because I had already separated when this happened.
hmm
She was wild.
Yes. Yeah, I totally can like feel, what you were saying. And just for the record, first supervisor, she is me. So for my audience out there, yes, she is me. So yes, I definitely tried to push you because I knew what it was like, having a new supervisor and being that new airman, because not long before I was just, that new airman before I became that new supervisor. So I wanted to instill in you and show you some things that I wished I had been shown and I wished I had been taught, so that push was me trying to prepare you for whatever it was, because I didn't know how long I was going to be with you, so I wanted you to gain as much knowledge and as much, strength you could before you were passed off to someone else, or, before I left, or whatever the case may have been. So I hope you understood
Oh,
where I
absolutely.
was coming from. So I was learning from you and you were learning from me. So yeah, I do appreciate your patience though.
I learned so much from you as my first supervisor because we were kind of surrounded by supervision that was very hands off
Hmm.
and just kind of hoped that you figured it out on your own. And you were the only supervisor that I really remember trying to make sure that I had the resources that I needed when you weren't there.
Yeah.
So when our time was up with your supervision, you wanted me to have everything in my tool arsenal to be
Yeah.
able to be successful. But I didn't see it at the time. I was a young airman. I was, what,
Yeah.
19 years old?
Yes, you were.
I thought I knew everything.
Yeah, they're like, look, this is how you get to base, okay? I'm not gonna pick you up all the time. You need to find a way. This is da 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 da. So yeah, and it was because nobody did it for me. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, so I'm glad and I appreciate your positive comments too. Thank you.
Yes.
Um, so next is the military caused some changes, some challenges in your life. How did you face them? Was it through faith, mentors, or just, encouraging yourself? How did you overcome your challenges?
I think faith is always at the center of everything for me. I was raised in the church. I have a very close relationship with God, and so that helps. But also, like I said, seeking mental health helped me
Hmm.
learn tools to manage stress. I learned that my to do list is self care. It was kind of like blindsiding for her to say basic hygiene is not considered self care.
Hmm.
And so if you're taking a bath and doing like fancy things like a sugar scrub and shaving things you don't normally shave, that's great. And it could be self care, but do you feel guilty for the time you took away from productive tasks?
Hmm.
And I had never thought of it that way. I
Hmm.
have, the military taught me to always be productive, always be moving, always be doing something. And so trying to learn to manage um, my own expectations of myself and learning that I put too much on my own plate. I had to work through the guilt I felt when I wasn't being productive,
Hmm.
and having a mental health provider really helped me with that.
Yeah, I like that. I really do like that because that is what you talk. Don't be standing around, you know. Just find something to do, even if it's
You're
wiping
standing
up.
there, you can be wiping something.
Yes, wipe up some nacho cheese, right? It's crazy. What is your biggest disappointment, or what was your biggest disappointment or letdown, and your biggest success?
I couldn't pick something when I was thinking about this
Yeah.
question. Because every experience led me to be who I am and
Mm-hmm.
taught me something about myself. So I don't know that I have a biggest disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't regret getting out of the military, even though I was so close to retire, like the halfway point,
Yeah.
because I had that substandard leader who put us on 14-hour shifts right after my husband deployed. And she knew
Mm-hmm.
I was taking college courses, but she also wanted me doing PME. So I was doing an extra college course on top of that. I had to find one FCC provider to drop my daughter off with at 4:30 in the morning at 2 years old, so that I could be to work by 5. And then another FCC provider picked her up from the daycare on base and took her home. And then I'd pick her up around 8 p.m. And we
Mm-hmm.
did that for like 7 months while my husband was
Oh
deployed.
no.
It was,
Goodness.
I don't think I slept. I don't remember ever getting any sleep. It was convenient because I was always awake during his time zone, but I was exhausted
Yeah,
and I think I was a zombie. And
absolutely.
so, although I was disappointed that that was my final experience in the
Mm-hmm.
military, it really led us as a family to have a discussion about how we want to raise our daughter,
Yeah.
um, whose career felt more valuable at the time to them, like who was getting something out of their career in the military. And we realized that I would succeed more in the civilian world.
Mm-hmm.
It took a lot of adjusting, but out of my husband and I was going to be more successful as a civilian at that point in our lives. And we wanted to give our daughter the opportunity to have a parent at all times. We have a ton of friends that are mill to mill, and both parents will be deployed at the same time, or one will be deployed and the other one will be TDY for months. And we
Yeah.
didn't want that instability in our
Mm-hmm.
household. We wanted some constants. So, although it was disappointing to end my career that way, I don't regret it because I think that it could have been easy to fall into a routine where, well, the military is our career
Yeah.
and our family just has to suck it up.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't regret that. Biggest successes, I don't know because I value the success I've had since I got out of the military, finishing my bachelor's, working on my master's, really loving the jobs that I've had since I got out. So I don't know that I
So it's just
can
been,
remember back then.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's good. Not not everyone has to have, a disappointment or a letdown or, something that just didn't go right and they'll remember it, for the rest of their lives. Not everyone has that experience. So it's really a blessing that you didn't have, that experience. So, what was your biggest concern facing separation and how did you face it?
My biggest concern during separation was what I was going to do for a career. Like, what was I going to be when I grew up?
Yeah.
I had asked some of the airmen that I supervised, I said, what do you think I should do as a grown up? And they were like, we only see you as military.
Mhm.
Like, we can't see you doing anything else. It didn't help that when I separated, I was following my husband to Japan. So my options were a lot more limited.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I had my GI Bill and I was able to complete my bachelor's through the University of Maryland, but I struggled not feeling like I was contributing to my family. I
Mhm.
was constantly finding odd jobs like stocking at the commissary or babysitting. At no point did my husband ever make it seem like his paycheck was his money. We shared a bank account for nearly a decade at this point. It
Mhm.
was a personal guilt that made me feel like I needed to earn my own money. I also felt like the house needed to be spotless at all times if I didn't have a job. My therapist helped me work through that. Um, she actually had me talk to myself like I was my own best friend. For
Mhm.
example, if my best friend told me she felt guilty that the laundry wasn't done, what would I tell her? Because I wouldn't be like, well, get off your butt and go do the laundry. And that's
Mhm.
something I would have said to myself.
Yeah.
But I would never say that to my best friend because she deserves grace. So why
Mhm.
was I neglecting to give myself that grace?
I like that. I like that. Well, you kind of answered that next question. Did you have any struggles reintegrating into the civilian life? Um, what do you say about that?
Well, I have a more unique situation because my husband's still in. So we moved to Japan, and after finishing my bachelor's, I got a job with the maintenance squadron on base. So I still had all of the structure of the military. And then
Mhm.
when we PCSed back to the States, that was 2021, right after all of COVID, and the job market was wild.
Yeah.
I spent over a year applying for jobs and getting really discouraged. At one point, Indeed sent me a congratulations on my 100th resume, which was not something that I needed to know I had done because Indeed was not the only job site I was using. So I had to have submitted at least 400 applications.
Yeah.
Um, Thankfully, I found a job at the county landfill in Florida, and I would still be there if we didn't move. I loved that job. I loved what I did. I loved everyone I worked with. It was amazing. It was still government, so I still got like the feel of the structure of the military
Yeah.
with a lot more freedom of like civilian life. My supervisor, though, had to work with me on email etiquette. He told me to be fluffier and less direct, which was a habit. We don't have time to read emails in the military, so short and sweet and to the point is what everyone would prefer.
Yeah.
So I had to learn how to be friendlier in email
Uh-huh.
because civilians don't. It appears very callous if you're direct and to the point, and so I had to
Mhm.
learn to be fluffy and nicer. We
Yeah.
also had to work on my tone because I can be very direct, and I don't realize how I sound when I'm talking, especially if
Hmm.
I'm not giving all of my attention to who I'm talking to. And
Funny,
so
I've
that was
been
something.
told that too. It's really funny.
If I'm distracted, I don't sound nice. Instead of an RBF, I call it an RBT. It's not my face, it's my tone, because I can look pleasant as can be, but it just doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
And so it's something that I've had to work on in the civilian world. And those, I think, were the biggest struggles reintegrating was learning how to interact with people who weren't just like go, go, go.
Yeah. I would agree. My first job after I separated was an administrative supervisor over at Pepsi. And so the administrative employees, so I had a team that I was over in 2 states. So in Alaska, the states were Anchorage. I had administrative staff in Anchorage and administrative staff in Fairbanks. So my task, so the or whatever would tell me to have your team do XYZ. So I would tell the team to do XYZ, and then I would get a response, yes, Tamika. And then I just really didn't, understand why it was like short and quick and like stank, right? And
Yeah.
so I would go back and I would tell the manager, hey, I told the team to do this, but they're not really responding to me. So this person walks into the manager's office and says, hey, manager, Tamika does not know how to talk to us. She thinks she is still in the military. I mean, just interrupted our conversation altogether. And I was like, manager, are you going to correct her? I'm used to that. You do not, barge into
Yeah.
someone's office, nor do you know what I'm saying, talk over or, talk against, the person that's over you. So it was like just blowing my mind how people communicated and it was okay. So I was like, well, maybe I could reel it back a little bit, but I didn't know I was reeling out, So I definitely understand having a different way to communicate using your tone and, your face and your eyes and your eyebrows. Yeah, so I get it.
I definitely had to learn to stop what I was doing every time someone came to my office
Mm.
because I was so used to us just keep working
Hmm.
and like just have a conversation. And
Yeah.
I had a subordinate tell me, it comes across really rude that you don't give us your attention when we come to
Hmm.
talk to you. And I was like, that is not my intent. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, and so she would come in and she'd sit down and she'd put her hand on my mouse
Hmm.
to remind me to stop. But we had that relationship already for her to feel comfortable doing
Yeah.
that. And it reminded me, and I got into the habit of, okay, I rearranged my whole office so that the chairs they sat in required me to turn away from my computer.
Yeah.
And I hit the mute button on my keyboard so that I wouldn't look every time I got an email. It was a major adjustment.
Hmm. Yeah. I know all about it. Okay, next. If you could have changed anything and brought awareness to an issue or topic, what would it have been?
Toxic leadership and avenues to address it.
Ooh.
There
Tell
are
me
too many,
more.
there are just too many leaders who have been in long enough to know how to kind of toe the line between what's right and wrong. And they get away with like terrible, for lack of a better word, like just being terrible leaders.
Mhm.
Uh, and I think the military needs a better system to address leaders who create that a hostile work environment or make people uncomfortable. Like the leader who we felt like we needed to be super peppy, or
Mhm.
she would be mad and retaliate in a professional way because she
Mhm.
was very good at that. And no one felt like they had an avenue out until they got enough people together, and everyone was afraid to talk about it. So it took a really long time before anyone felt comfortable going to each other and saying, this isn't right. What should
Yeah.
we do? And then they banded together. But if there had been a better avenue, maybe more people would have come forward and been
Yeah.
like, this isn't right.
Mhm. Yeah, I like that. What is one moment you will always remember?
So the way my military family wrapped me in love and support when family members passed,
Mm.
um, is something I'll never forget. When my uncle passed away, I had just come back from leave for the holidays. I'd maybe been at work for 3 hours, and I went in and I told them what happened. And within the hour, they had me on emergency leave. They had pulled my husband in because he wasn't at work yet. We were still in the same shop. He was on emergency leave. They put it in for him, and we were on the road. They made sure we had money. It was so quick. Within the hour, we were on the road back home.
Yeah.
And then when my grandma was in her last days, um, tons of coworkers came over, and we were all on the phone with different airlines and online with like trying to find the cheapest flights, all while my supervisor was working with the first sergeant to get me on emergency leave and like the Red Cross notification. And I was able to get there and spend a few days with my grandma before she passed.
That's
And
wonderful.
they sent coffee to the house because everyone knows I'm addicted to coffee. And then another person's mom had passed, and instead of sending flowers like we normally do, someone organized what they called grief groceries. And so we took up donations for however much she wanted to donate, and they sent groceries to her mom's house. And
Mhm.
so the whole family was fed. It was like Hot Pockets and pizza rolls, things that they could just pop in the oven, but they weren't like casseroles that were already
Mhm.
made, that were already being provided, are normally provided in those
Yeah.
situations. And so the way, regardless of how we felt about each other or what was going on at work, if something happened, the way military families come together and wrap each other in love and support is something I'll carry with me forever.
Mhm. I love that. I love that. I'm glad you got the opportunity to experience that because I did not. So, it's just so many times, that people get to experience things that other people didn't, which makes their careers, so different. And, it's nice to hear, the stories of how people were actually treated in the military, because sometimes you hear the horror stories, but you don't hear the amazing stories. So I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear that you got the opportunity to have some amazing, times in the military. Let's see. If you could summarize your military career in one word or one phrase, what would it be?
Learning.
Ooh.
You just never stop learning
Mhm.
when you're in the military, whether it's from your mistakes, the mistakes of others, from seeing leadership done in a way that you love or seeing leadership done in a way that you never want to imitate. You're just constantly learning, and you get experiences from people of different backgrounds and ethnicities and upbringings and experiences. And so you're constantly learning from perspectives that you otherwise might not have been exposed to.
Yeah.
I learned so much about people and interacting with others and language barriers from my
Yeah.
time in the military. And I will always be thankful for that.
Hmm. Okay. That is beautiful. And that wraps up our time together. So, once again, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for being honest and open. And I hope to invite you again, maybe down the road on another topic. So, once again, thank you for joining Purposeful Pressure.
Thank you for having me.